What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days and Counting, where I do 2 live stream shows per week. One in the morning, Fridays 8 a.m., one in the evening, Tuesday 6 p.m. This is your evening edition. We got a lot to get to on this show. We're going to actually dance around various different EJ interests here on 40 Days and Counting. But we're going to be talking plenty of sports, but we're actually going to be starting with soccer. We just had a massive World Cup semifinal matchup between France and Spain, so we'll get you guys the latest on that. Once again, we'll be talking plenty about what's going on in the world of soccer and how we have a big matchup now coming up on Wednesday where you have Argentina versus England. So we get plenty of World Cup soccer in here. We'll also talk plenty about what's going on in the NBA, because the investigation to Kawhi Leonard appears to be expanding according to the latest from The Athletic. So we'll get the details on what's going on with that. We'll also talk about what's going on tonight in Major League Baseball, because we have the All-Star game coming up, and we had a thrilling home run derby live on Netflix in Philadelphia last night. So we'll talk about Jordan Walker's big win in the home run derby. We'll talk some Marvel and DC, because there's some big Marvel and DC news out there. Plenty to get to, plenty to discuss. We're going to have a fun time. This is EJ Stewart streaming live 40 Days and Counting. Once again, having some additional issues with X. I'm not going to stop the stream today. I'm just going to keep going, unfortunately. I don't know what's going on. The X thing is really becoming a little bit of a mess, because today we didn't even play any weird audio sounds to start, and it still stopped our stream. So I'm not sure why the X feed is crapping out the way it's been doing that, but we're going to move forward. We're streaming live multiple spots, streaming live currently on YouTube, New Generation Media. Shout out to the folks watching me on YouTube. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel to catch all editions of 40 Days and Counting. Just search New Generation Media on YouTube. Also streaming live on Instagram. Shout out to the folks on Instagram watching live there. We're also streaming live on Buzzer. Shout out to the Buzzer fam. If you haven't signed up to Buzzer already, be sure to download the Buzzer app. Just search BZZR Mobile or go to buzzer.com, and you can watch your boy EJ along with various other really talented content creators doing awesome stuff over at Buzzer. So this is going to be a fantastic show. So again, unfortunately, no dice with X today. Again, this has been an ongoing fiasco with X, where it stops early in the stream. And today, I don't even know why, because today all we had was music. It wasn't even any sound being played. So we'll leave X to be. We'll continue the rest of this show, because we still got a lot of content and a lot of stuff to get to you guys, and it's going to be a fun one. Again, if you want to shout out your boy, be sure to also follow me on social media. You can find me EJ_Stewart on X. That is where we typically stream live, not today. And of course, we're streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. You can also follow me on TikTok as well, Action EJ. 40 Days and Counting coming right at you. This will be a good one. So let's kick it off with what we just saw. It's really interesting and fun to do a show where you just had a sporting event happen, and then you walk right in and you can talk about it. So we had the World Cup, one half of the World Cup semifinal complete between France and Spain. This one, a winner for the Spanish side. Spain advances to the World Cup final for just the second time in its history. They are 1-0 in the World Cup final, so that's a good omen for them. This was a game, to me, watching that the France side kind of looked unrecognizable, and you got to give a lot of credit to Spain, right? Spain's ability to hold the possession. I thought Lamine Yamal played his best game of the World Cup thus far. He had been battling some injuries coming in. He didn't look quite his fittest. You could tell early on, Stuart Holden was right on top of it, saying that Yamal looked different today, and he caused havoc. He caused the first penalty kick that ended up being a goal for Spain, thanks to Mikel can't get his name right. Oyarzabal, who actually has been a really clutch player for them. He had multiple big goals in the Copa del Rey. He had a big 2 goals in the last World Cup Spain was in. He had big goals in the Euro tournament for Spain. So he's been a big time player for Spain. He comes through with the penalty kick here. Pedro Porro added another goal in a situation where, once again, France's defense looked a step slow. France just didn't look like themselves. And again, you got to give credit where credit is due. I know we looked at France coming into this tournament for a lot of people as the favorites, but when you get to this stage of the World Cup and we have essentially the top 4 teams, according to FIFA, all in it, France may have been quote-unquote favored, but I don't know if you can really look at this as an upset. I mean, France has world-class players similar to how Spain has world-class players, and I think you got it, again, give a lot of credit to the Spanish side. I'll be curious with Spain moving forward. We know how much of an international star Mbappe is because he's an established face. Dembele is also becoming an established face in now multiple World Cups where we've seen these guys playing at the highest level. This is actually a really big moment potentially for obviously Lamine Yamal, who now have the opportunity playing on the World Cup final stage, which is he's already a huge star. He's only 19 years old, but considering how quiet his World Cup has been and then how loud he was in this game, he was this close to scoring a spectacular third goal in this game that was wiped away due to an offsides. You get the impression that maybe this is Yamal's opportunity to kind of have the World Cup Mbappe had. Now we're going 8 years ago, right? When he burst onto the scene and was a master star for a French side that won the World Cup. And that kind of pushed Mbappe as the next big thing in the soccer, which soccer fans and football fans around the world already knew. But I think for the super casuals, and particularly the American casuals, this kind of made Mbappe, the next face after, the Ronaldo and Messi era, which we thought was over. But Messi's obviously still may have a lot to say. He may be the reason why Yamal doesn't end up winning a World Cup. But as that era kind of subsided or was pushed away, we now have this new line that we can now talk about in Mbappe. And Yamal now has that opportunity. But, I mean, Spain, this was their best game. I mean, to me, watching Spain throughout the course of this tournament, I kind of was waiting for them to really have one of these real signature moments. Like, it felt like, the Portugal game a couple of games ago, they kind of, and I don't say sleptwalk through it, but, the way Portugal plays, they get you in a sluggish defensive style game, and they got their one goal in the second half, but then that was it. They did get two against Belgium, but I don't know. I feel like we hadn't, quite seen like this really crisp, dominant Spain performance, really maybe since, I mean, you want to say Austria, fine. You want to say maybe Saudi Arabia, where, everybody was scoring. But, I mean, against the real top teams, I really was looking for this performance from Spain. I didn't know if they had it in them, to be honest, given what I saw from them in this World Cup. What you feel like now is you start to wonder if this is a team that is now ascending and now is starting to get into the right fit and starting to feel a lot more like themselves now with Yamal playing at a much higher level. So this was obviously a great win for the country. It sets up, almost regardless of how this went, this was going to be an epic final. France, I think, was the team everybody was really hoping to see, but I think still Spain have an opportunity to win the second World Cup, whether they're facing England, who will have the entire world wondering if they finally are able to crack this, 54 plus year, 56, however many years it's been, 50 plus year curse of not winning a World Cup, whether it's Argentina or with Messi in what could be his final World Cup, having an opportunity to go out with the absolute biggest bang possible. And if there are still people doubting if he's the GOAT, I think winning a World Cup at 39 years old, when a lot of people thought he would have been done after his previous World Cup, would be the absolute icing on the cake. And then winning back-to-back World Cups would be crazy, right? So this is high stakes. I can't wait to see this England-Argentinian game tomorrow. This is a long-standing rivalry for these two countries, so I expect there to be some bad blood in this one. But Spain moving on and advancing, that's going to be a fun final to see who Spain faces, whether it's England, where you got an all-Euro championship World Cup final that I think would be extremely exciting, with how Jude Bellingham is, to me, he's kind of become the player of the World Cup this year to me. I know we've had, Messi's still having his moments, and we've had, obviously, Mbappe is having an incredible World Cup, as he always does, and then we've had Haaland obviously also having a huge World Cup, but Jude Bellingham and the way he's put his team on his back the last two games, I feel like he's setting himself up to kind of be the player of this World Cup. So maybe it's him in that moment. Again, maybe it's Messi going on a last ride against this young, hungry Spain team. I mean, either way it goes, it's going to be a fun one. But Spain advances to the World Cup final after beating France today 2-0 in what was a thorough victory. Again, France had some moments, but they just didn't seem to really ever kick it in gear. This was a game that the French side never really kind of got to play their A game. So Spain moves on. That's going to be again a fun foul to watch, a fun championship final to watch on Sunday. We move on to the NBA here. The story that also broke right before we were coming on. It's funny how this has been a weird day where we've had several different stories come in and break basically right before the show started. I had the whole show rundown that was kind of ready to go. And then you got to throw stuff out because, you got to adjust, right? I knew the World Cup was going to end by the time the show started, but I didn't think we have more details on the Kawhi Leonard investigation. But we do. We learned via The Athletic. Shout out to Mike Vorkanoff of The Athletic, who did a phenomenal read up on just kind of the latest on where things stand with the Kawhi Leonard Clippers investigation, with the NBA looking into whether there was circumventing of the cap efforts being made by the Clippers with this endorsement deal that looks like a no-show job that Kawhi got with this tree planting company called Aspiration. Where this headline got interesting today as we still await what's going to happen. As you guys know, or you may not know, Kawhi Leonard was supposed to be traded to the Toronto Raptors in a proposed deal that was agreed to by both the Raptors and the Los Angeles Clippers, was sent Kawhi back to the Six. That deal's now been put on hold because the NBA alerted the Raptors that they would be subject to any penalty that may come down by virtue of this investigation with the Aspiration scandal. So it's something that I criticize the NBA for. I don't quite understand why they would be penalized for it. If you want to say Kawhi Leonard's going to be penalized, that's one thing. If you want to say the Clippers are going to be penalized, that's one thing. If the Raptors may take on penalties the Clippers may have taken on, that would be utterly ridiculous. But again, we have to, I guess, await more details to see exactly what was the NBA planning to do to the Raptors if they indeed push this deal ahead. We'll probably know that once the findings come down. But what we did learn, again, via this article by The Athletic, was that the NBA and the law firm that is running this case is now no longer just looking into the Aspiration aspect of it. The tree planting company that seemed to be giving Kawhi Leonard at various different points just the exact amount of money that he could not get or did not get from a full max extension with the Los Angeles Clippers. There's also potentially a second endorsement deal that the league is also looking into to see whether or not this was an improper move made by Kawhi and the Clippers to circumvent the cap, along with potential other benefits the Clippers gave to Kawhi that were improper and that should have been reimbursed. So this was the main piece from The Athletic, and I'll read it here. That kind of outlines exactly what we are looking at with this investigation involving Kawhi, the Clippers, and Aspiration. So I'll read this as soon as I can pull it up in a second. Let me just give me 1 second. I know you guys see it there, but I gotta be able to read it myself. Well, I could probably read it from there. So I'll just read there. While LA Clippers, Leonard, and now the Raptors await. Now, of course, this comes up right as I'm reading. That's always how it goes. Let's see if I can pull it up big now so I can actually read it for myself, if it will allow me to, which right now it is not. Let's try one more time. All right, I just gotta do it here. Stand by. Okay. So yes, this will come up for me in a second, but here we go. While the LA Clippers and Leonard now the Raptors all wait for a conclusion, the investigation has grown into scope since it began, according to multiple sources who spoke to Athletic on the condition of anonymity in order to speak freely. Not only was Wachtel Lipton, the league's go-to firm hired to conduct the inquiry, inspected if the Clippers circumvented the NBA salary cap by facilitating a sponsorship deal for Leonard with Aspiration. It has also looked into whether the Clippers improperly covered expenses for Leonard but were not reimbursed for them, those sources said. And the firm has examined if Leonard had previously unreported endorsement deal unreported endorsement deal with another company, those sources said as well. So that ain't good, obviously. And that's not good, obviously, for Kawhi. It's not good for the Clippers. And I guess if the Raptors want to eventually have Kawhi Leonard on their team, that's probably not good for them. It was interesting that at Summer League, with the Raptors playing, Kawhi Leonard was sitting just a few seats away from Raptors brass as they were watching the Raptors Summer League action. So he apparently is still acting as if he's going to be a member of the Raptors. From the reporting we've seen, they're putting out, not the public face because they're not speaking on the record, but these sourced quotes you see to various different media outlets is pushing this, I guess, expectation that like eventually this deal will be done and Kawhi will be a Raptor without much to do about nothing. I don't think that's gonna happen. I'll be real. Like I don't think at this point, if this law firm is already digging into other different things and other deals that we didn't even know about, that we still haven't learned about, it suggests maybe that there's a pattern happening with Leonard that would maybe even intensify the level of punishment he would get. At this point, with all the headlines, this story is now brought back into the spotlight because of the move by the league office to tell the Raptors that if they do this deal that there are going to be penalties, and therefore this massive story of Kawhi being traded now being put on hold, where I think a lot of people have kind of forgot about the aspiration thing. I almost feel like now there has to be some significant punishment to the Raptors. To the Clippers and to Kawhi Leonard. I would be surprised at this point, given what the NBA must know at this point in time, that there isn't going to be some kind of penalties, and that's probably why they put out there or went to the Raptors and said, hey, I know you guys want to do this deal, but just let you guys know, like, this is going to end up being a really bad look, and the only way we can protect ourselves is to punish you guys. Now, I would argue, again, that may sound unfair, but what that tells me, though, that this isn't nothing to do about anything happening here. I mean, we saw, if you have followed the Pablo Torre investigation, even broadly, it seems kind of cut and dry. Like I'm all for coincidences, but there seem to be 1, 2, or 12 too many with the amount of money being sent at specific dates and specific times that seem to coincide with money that the Clippers could not give Kawhi in order to avoid going over the luxury tax. It seems pretty cut and dry to me. What I'm reading from this, though, is that I think that a penalty is going to be had. And I want to make something else clear as well, because I've seen kind of various different opinions on this in terms of the seriousness of it and whether or not punishment is even warranted. Let me be clear. The Clippers have to get the book. And this is something I've felt from the beginning. If this is true, and you have teams like the Knicks, like the Nuggets, like the Celtics, we've seen various different NBA champions, teams that have won championships. Clippers haven't even won jack. Teams that have won championships that have lost important players that they could not retain, in large part because of the harsh ramifications and harsh penalties that come with the second apron. If you have those teams that are clearly operating with some level of concern or some level of honor, I guess is lack of a better word, that they can't do these kind of things to circumvent the cap to help themselves. So therefore, you have to lose a Mitchell Robinson, you have to lose a Drew Holiday, you have to lose a Bruce Brown. These are teams that won championships that lost these guys almost immediately. Those teams are operating with that level of concern about the fact that they can't do this, and they're not apparently doing underhanded deals or under the table agreements to make sure that they don't face those penalties. You can't then have the rules not apply to the Clippers, where they can say, okay, we're going to make these other different no-show jobs and different things happen so that we can get this money to Kawhi Leonard so he can stay here and we could have a competitive team. It's ridiculous. Like I kind of hate just like, I've talked about this before on this show. Like, we just live in a world and we live in an environment of nothing matters. Like I don't know what happened. I don't know why where this came from. I don't know, but this is like the nothing matters era of really life, not just sports. But facts don't matter, rules don't matter, nothing matters. So like, there's been this apathy to this story, and I understand. Maybe it's just like not a story that's interesting to you. The league doesn't operate on what is interesting and what is not interesting. The league operates under a certain level of bylaws that are important for the integrity of the sport. It doesn't matter whether it's interesting or not, small potatoes, big potatoes. That's not part of whether or not you turn a blind eye to things. That's not how the league is supposed to work. It's not how the world is supposed to work. I think because people want to kind of like, Like they want to either show that they don't care about whatever Pablo Torre has been reporting, or because they don't care about the Clippers or they don't care about Kawhi. They want to kind of say, oh, like you guys should just let this thing go and we just move on. It's like, no, that's unacceptable. There are teams that, again, who are operating not under the same rules as the Clippers, allegedly, with the Clippers being able to successfully circumvent the cap if this all happened and this is all true. That you got to throw the book at them. To me, they should have multiple first-round picks that have been removed. I think Steve Ballmer maybe should be suspended, arguably for at least a year. And I'm open to other further penalties. I don't know what other penalties would exist. I don't think you would do anything like, ban them from making the playoffs or anything like that. I wouldn't go that far, but I think that this needs to be severe. This, especially if we're talking about now potentially multiple endorsement deals that were made by the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, which again is what the Athletic today is reporting is being investigated. These are accusations. We don't know if it's true. We don't know if that's what happened, but if that is true, that's a big deal. And we're not talking about, oh, this is like a couple $100,000. I mean, this guy made an extra $29 million. That's a lot of freaking money. That's not nothing. Like, spare me this whole, I don't care about journalism, or I don't care about Pablo Torre, I don't care about the Clippers, I don't care about the NBA. Damn that. That is a significant amount of money that changes the entire landscape of how you build a roster. Again, we've seen how much teams have had to go through all these various different hurdles to try to put together competitive rosters with how the new league salary cap rules have been applied. You can't have people being able to circumvent it and then say, oh, well, because people don't care about it anymore, and because Kawhi's not a Clipper anymore, that we just move on. That's not how the world's supposed to work. I know there's a feeling that because everyone wants to show how apathetic they are to everything, that maybe that's how it should work with this. I don't think it should work that way. I think there have been moments where maybe the league wished that this would not be under the spotlight, but I think what's happening, I assume, and why I think we're going to hear something probably pretty drastic very soon, is the investigation that they tried to do, I guess, with some level of honor, right? Like they hired a real law firm, a white gloves law firm, to look into this. Whatever they found was so like egregious that like it would look silly for them to ignore it. Like eventually the findings are going to come out whether they decide to punish the Clippers or not. If they don't punish the Clippers and these findings come out, I think they look crazier probably. So I think if you're a Clippers fan, you could have the jokes about how, there are not too many of them. I don't like to do that because, whatever. It's people are fans of the teams. It is what it is, right? But if you're a Clippers fan, if you were hoping that this thing was just going to go away or there was going to be very small penalties for me, I think you better hope that Keaton Wagler is the one. Because I don't know when the next time y'all got a first-round pick. I'm being real. Like, I think you better hope that Darius Garland's going to step up and reach a new height in his game. You better hope that the team that they started to put together, this young nucleus that they've started to mold, that young nucleus can overcome whatever is going to come down by the NBA. Because I don't think this is going to be a small thing. And I'll be very curious what happens with the Raptors with this whole situation. Like, is Kawhi Leonard's contract going to be voided prior to any trade being agreed upon? And if that's the case, does Kawhi essentially become, the most coveted free agent in the NBA? Now, that may change if he also is facing some lengthy suspension, right? If he's suspended for a year or something like that, then all bets are off. But if he becomes a free agent because of this, does he just sign with the Raptors? I don't know that. Like, I think there may be a lot of NBA teams that would say, hey, for the minimum, just like these teams that have called Rich Paul about LeBron James, I'm sure there are teams, even if Kawhi Leonard can't play for half a year or 50 games or whatever, it might be good for him, to be honest, with all his knee issues. There may be teams that will be saying, hey, listen, we'll sign up Kawhi Leonard 1 year, 30 NBA regular season games, and then have him ready for the playoffs. Like, he's Kawhi Leonard. He can still play. Why would we not make that kind of decision? So I think you're a Raptors fan who was excited about this move, and I think he should have been. I would be very worried. I don't know if he's ever going to put on a Raptor uniform, because if he does become a free agent, I don't think he goes there. But interesting detail about the new expanded investigation into the Kawhi Leonard stuff. It doesn't feel like this is getting any better for Kawhi and the Clippers side of this. And if you're a Raptors fan hoping you can just get your guy and move on, I don't think it's looking good for you either. We got the All-Star game tonight. Should be a fun one. We had an awesome home run derby last night. Jordan Walker of the St. Louis Cardinals was your winner. He beats Kyle Schwarber in Kyle Schwarber's current hometown. I know he's from Indiana, but obviously he plays for the Phillies, and this was at Citizens Bank Park. And I'll be honest, I watched the show, and I posted it on social media. I watched the show. They made some changes to the rules in that there were the first round was not these one-on-one matchups, and they got rid of what was really one of the huge changes to the home run derby within the last, I guess, 10 years or so. I actually kind of didn't realize how long it was. I was watching clips of Aaron Judge hitting home runs in Miami. I was like, wow, that was like 2017. I didn't realize the clock was even that old. But for about 10 years or so, they've been doing this running clock where basically you had, I think it was, I want to say 3 minutes. Maybe it was more. I don't remember. But you had 3 to 4 minutes, something like that, to hit as many home runs as possible in you know, and then that's how they judged who advanced, right? And it was done in large part because people complained about the 10-out rule being outdated and feeling like the event was moving too slowly, and you weren't seeing enough home runs. Like if guys started slow in the 10-out rule, you were cooked. With the running clock, if guys got to a slow start, but then they started heating up at the end, you know, they had an opportunity to come back, right? Like it's supposed to just only 10 outs. I still, I'll get to where I'm gonna get to, but still, I really enjoyed the home run derby as it was with the clock. I thought the clock was a great addition. It added a level of urgency to baseball that you don't typically see, that I actually really enjoyed to watch, and fans, I thought, loved it. I didn't think this was something that needed to be changed. I think maybe there was questions marks about whether players loved it because it was resulting in a lot of swings in a short amount of time. And I think some players, in terms of whether or not they wanted to do the home run derby, I think they kind of balked at the idea of having to take potentially that many swings, especially if you end up going to the finals and winning. So this year, Netflix, they're now MLB broadcast partners, they got the opportunity to broadcast the home run derby, and the rules changed this year. This year, instead of what I think it was 3 minutes that you were given before, or 4 minutes, whatever it was, now you were giving 20 swings. So essentially, you had 20 swings, hit as many home runs as possible, and then once you got to your final swing, you could hit as many home runs on that final swing. It obviously would never end on an out. I'll be honest. At first, I thought, especially for the first round, it felt like the new format was a little sleepy to me. Like, I think it was missing some of that urgency that came with the clock, and I didn't love the first round, to be honest. I thought it felt like it was moving a lot slower, and I don't know. I thought the clock was a lot better. I feel like this new format though worked much better for the head-to-head matchups in the second and final round. I ended up really enjoying this home run derby. It ended up being incredible by the last round. And you got Schwarber versus Jordan Walker, and Schwarber puts on an incredible display, 11 home runs on 15 swings, and it took, or 10 home runs on 15 swings, and it took Jordan Walker, who went down to his final swing with only 6 homers, to have to hit 6 straight home runs with 1 swing left, 1 out left essentially, to come back and win, with the Philly crowd all over him, booing him, jeering him, trying to get in their head. It worked on Wilson Contreras in the previous round. Wilson Contreras, by the way, you want to talk about somebody who just, I have this EJ personal stock. I love the home run derby. I've loved it as a kid. And just personal stock raising for a home run derby. Wilson Contreras he hit the most majestic shots last night. I underestimated the light towerness of his power. I mean, he was hitting 480-foot bombs like they were nothing last night. But I thought the Philly crowd got in his head. I thought he was easily going to get Schwarber out of there, and what I thought was kind of a meh round. But he kind of choked a little bit at the end, I think, because the Philly crowd was getting after him. He tried to play the villain role, and I don't think it worked for him. And then you see Jordan Walker, this young 24-year-old, in that same positioning where it felt like because of the slow start he got off to, it was going to be impossible for him to overcome that. And you see him walk down Kyle Schwarber with all those homers. That was awesome. I got it. Sometimes you give it up to being wrong. Like I came out, I jumped out the gate, I posted on social media. I was like, I don't. Where's the clock? I missed the clock already. But then I got to the final, and I was like, this final was good. So I think this format's gonna be here to stay. I think I'm curious. Where I felt like with the clock, even if there was a large discrepancy or a large, I guess, deficit, it felt like because of the urgency of the clock, it still felt like there was reason to pay attention. I felt like with this, it felt a lot close to the out formatting that I think everyone wanted to be done after a while. It felt more like that. I wonder if you're seeing a guy who's so far behind, if that becomes a little anticlimactic. Like, they could not have gotten a better situation for a cosign of this new formatting. Because the reality is, if Jordan Walker goes down to 6 home runs, he's got 1 swing left, and, he flies out to third on the next swing. That's a kind of, a ho-hum end to the home run derby. Where I think if there's a clock, there's at least a little bit of there's an urgency to it that I think is just different. The fact that he did what he did this incredible feat, makes it like, all right, well, if this is going to be on the table, where you can see something this awesome, and the pressure of like having to hit a home run with only 1 swing left, this feels more like real baseball than the previous format that I told you guys I loved. So I think it works. I think it's here to stay. I'll be curious, though, in future years, how much this format is one that people will sign up for. It's hard to fight against it right now, to be honest. Like, I was ready to fight against it because I didn't love the first round. And then the second round and the final round happened. I was like, okay, I kind of get it. It only makes me wonder if maybe they should... I'd almost would prefer maybe they do a timed segment in the first round and then go to the swing segment maybe in the second and third round. Again, and that's all the people saying too, I thought the first round was kind of boring. Like, I'll be real. Like, as someone who really enjoyed, and I thought that you couldn't keep your eyes off of the home run derby in previous years, starting from the first round. I thought this first round was extremely boring with this new format. It worked a lot better when the guys were head-to-head. I always wonder if maybe you bring back the head-to-headness of it again, where maybe you are doing your bracket, where you're having guys facing off against each other rather than just having the top 4 guys advance. So it was some confusion. I think some guys didn't quite understand all the rules because some guys were taking breaks and other guys weren't. I think they were trying to, I think the Netflix crew was trying to nudge Ben Rice that he could take a break because he was clearly struggling at the plate. And then they're talking to Cam Schlittler was like, they told us he couldn't take a break. And I'm like, he's like, oh well. And I'm watching Ben Rice just flailing. I'm like, this guy is gassed, clearly, so he needs to take a break, but he doesn't know. And then other guys earlier before him were taking breaks. So I think they need to probably talk about the rules and communicate the rules maybe a little better next time around. But the home run derby was fun. I gotta be real. It was good. It was great to see Jordan Walker win. I mean, it was a great moment. Cross Warburg, the hometown guy winning, obviously is an obvious fun story. But I almost think like this young kid coming in and playing, I won't say he's a villain because he seems like such a nice guy. But that's a lot of pressure. This is his first All-Star game, first big moment. This is a player who was a huge prospect coming up in the minor league system. And had kind of been a bust up until this point, right? Injuries, inconsistency. He never really, after what was a decent rookie year, he hadn't really lived up to the huge billing that was his number one prospect, listing that he had when he came up through the minors. But he's having a phenomenal year. The Cardinals have been a kind of surprise competitive team this year. So I thought to see him step up in that moment was really cool. And I liked what he said afterwards as well, where he talked about how, something that I've covered myself, which has been the decline of African Americans in Major League Baseball. It's an issue that I feel like we tried to and I'm not saying MLB hasn't tried to tackle. They have. They've done their work and coordination with the RBI program. They've done various different outreach stuff. I think they've tried to make better efforts at marketing the game. They've changed the rules, I think, to help market the game in a better way. So where there was, I think, years where MLB simply didn't care and they just moved forward, they have certainly put in efforts. I don't know if those efforts have worked at all. I think what we've seen is still a small number of African Americans playing baseball. I think a large part of that could definitely be that there isn't really at this point in time African American. Well, you have Aaron Judge, but Aaron Judge is biracial, and there's nothing against him for that. But I do think that there is for a lot of folks in terms of looking at identity, I think that does complicate things. It's not maybe as straightforward as it was when Ken Griffey Jr. was face baseball, right? That's all I'm saying with that. He's, of course, a great player, and, of course, he's an African-American. But I think because we haven't had someone who is 100% African-American as a huge, huge star in Major League Baseball, Mookie Betts is kind of on the decline. I think that could be a big reason why Jordan Walker has all the physical tools to be a superstar. He probably just doesn't have the notoriety, the name, or the exposure. This was a great moment for him. I don't know if means that this is going to be continuing or ushering a renaissance of African Americans in baseball, because the issues lie way deeper than simply just lack of visibility. There's similar to what we talked about with soccer. And shout out to my guy Alex Zarm, who I want to shout out because he did a phenomenal job, by the way, last week jumping on for this show on Tuesday, last Tuesday, talking about the issues with U.S. soccer, where there's so much pay to play that it is basically, gatekept, I think is the right word, gatekept, is gatekept a lot of, potentially really great athletes from playing because they simply can't afford it. This has been baseball's issue for 20 years now. Like, baseball has become super expensive, and to get really good and to get exposure and to get in front of college and pro scouts, you got to play for these travel teams, you got to play in these travel events, and the cost it takes to play on these teams, to keep up with the equipment you need, it's massive, right? And that is definitely a deterrent. It's multiple things. It's not one thing. It's not one silver bullet. It's not that we don't have enough Jordan Walkers. It's not that it's only that it's pay to play. It's not that the game itself may just be boring. It's not that we have broadband internet and people are just finding more exciting, different things they want to do. It's all part of the gumbo as to why we have less African Americans playing baseball. But I think it would be awesome if Jordan Walker becomes one of these household names and maybe helps usher in a new era where we do get more African Americans in baseball. Because, when you look at, I was watching yesterday. I forgot who posted it on X, but shout out to them. Actually, I'll see if I can find it real quick. But someone posted the introduction to the 1996 All-Star Game. And you know how I am about All-Star Games. I'm very nostalgic. Maybe some people don't like that. They think I'm a loser for it, but whatever. I don't care. Very nostalgic about All-Star Games. And someone posted the 96 All-Star Game, which was the last one, I believe, in Philadelphia. It was at the Vet. And it was just really awesome because you're seeing, these players of yesteryear. You're seeing almost different generations. Like, you had Alex Rodriguez, who was playing in his first All-Star Game in 1996, on one side, playing shortstop as a reserve. And on the other side, and what had to have been, if not his last year, one of his last years, Ozzie Smith for the National League playing in the All-Star Game. He got a standing ovation in Philadelphia, and I think it was his 13th or 14th All-Star Game. But just seeing the names and seeing them, the guys, and seeing it was like watching. To me, it was almost like reading a comic book again. I mean, these guys are superheroes, right? I know there's a lot of steroid stuff with a lot of these players. There's no question about that. But Cal Ripkins, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Andy Pettis was in his first All-Star Game. Mike Piazza. It was just really cool. Again, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. But what was striking that I didn't even think about till just now was just the amount of African Americans that were just in the All-Star Game. It was, again, Bonds, Albert Bell. It was just, or Barry Larkin. It was rattling them off. However many, Joe Carter, who got booed out of the building because, of course, a home run he hit against the Phillies 3 years prior in the World Series. It was awesome to see that. And, there was a time where baseball looked a lot more African American as it does. And it's not at all to suggest that it's lesser than, because we have way more Latin American players. I think the Latin American players, the Japanese players, the Asian players, and the Korean guys, everybody, has all made the sport much better. The Caribbean guys, there's nothing about that that's negative. It's just the fact that we've essentially removed basically an aspect of the sport that I do think is important to the American culture, that black people are invested in baseball. I do think is a shame. So it was really cool to see that. See that old All-Star Game, see all the faces. Forget about just the black faces. Just, again, Mark McGwire and Cal Ripken, Greg Maddux, seeing basically almost the entire Brave staff at the All-Star Game. Maddux with his glasses on. Which I thought was funny. I don't know if he wasn't going to pitch or why he was wearing glasses. But Maddux with his glasses, Glavin's there, Smoltz is starting. It was just awesome. Just an awesome, cool thing. That was 1996. Now 30 years later. Now we're watching a new All-Star Game with a bunch of new stars coming up very shortly later tonight. And that'll be fun to watch. I'm excited to watch this All-Star Game. I always love the All-Star Game. MLB All-Star Game to me by far the best. The NBA All-Star Game lost its way. They did make some effort last year to make this last All-Star Game really good. So let's see if maybe we can get it back to being top level or near the top. Pro Bowl obviously is a flag football game now and a bunch of kickball and dodgeball games and tug of war. Well, hockey, it's not real hockey. Though the Four Nations was fire, but that's not an All-Star game. Baseball is the one sport where it's the closest thing to still the real thing. Outside of pitchers only pitching one inning, they're still playing actual baseball. It's not guys laying around, not playing defense, throwing up softballs. Like it's not like the All-Star game is in football with the Pro Bowl and with basketball in the NBA. And hockey, this and the flip side is very much still a real game. So that part of it is fun and it's still the best. Pageantry of it is the best. The home run derby last night, the pageantry was awesome. It's just a fun weekend. It always ends up being a fun weekend. Let's shift gears and let's talk about something a little more negative, unfortunately, and that is what I think is basically the end of Conor McGregor. So Conor McGregor, he was fighting this weekend in the latest UFC event. He lost his comeback fight to Max Holloway. This happened essentially less than a minute into the fight because 5 seconds into the fight, he suffered what looked like an apparent knee injury. Conor McGregor has since said that he has undergone surgery to repair whatever issue he had. We don't know what the issue is. When the fight happened and he left the arena, all UFC would say was that it was an interior leg injury, and that was about it. But when you watch the fight, Conor McGregor races towards Max Holloway to try to do a spectacular roundhouse leaping kick, and you could see the knee buckle on the land for the kick. It might have been the explosion, wherever it was. You could see the knee buckle when he was making the move, and he essentially was hobbling for the next several seconds, went to the ground. Max Holloway is basically telling the ref, like, "Come on, what are we doing here? He can't fight." And then they called the fight, and it ended up being probably the easiest victory of Max Holloway's UFC and MMA career. And I bring this up only because the Conor McGregor phenomenon that he was, to see what could be the culmination of the end this way, is quite sad. It also could not have happened to allegedly a worse guy. The truth of the matter is, while it's hard to ever see anybody suffer a severe injury, like as someone who went through a severe knee injury, it's devastating, and you wouldn't wish it on many people. When you consider how Conor McGregor has treated people over several years, how he's acted in the public light, it's hard to really feel that level of empathy that you would for any normal athlete that would have something like that happen to them. There's somebody that has seemed to want to take his life and the rule of law and the world of UFC and make a mockery of it. And with that, he also has harmed people in the process of that. Of course, he had the rape civil case where he was found liable of raping a young woman. Details of that incident are pretty harrowing, and it was kind of hard for me to really pay much attention to the Conor McGregor comeback tour because of the fact that is out there, and yet he's back in the UFC fighting as if nothing happened. He of course maintains his innocence. This was not this is not a criminal court case, right? So there's differences with civil cases and criminal cases, even in Ireland, where I believe this was adjudicated. But nonetheless, it's still quite disturbing when you hear some of the details about that incident. You had again the various different comments he's made, racially insensitive, Islamophobic stuff, lead ups to fights, and some of that stuff you may say, okay, that's just him trying to play up a fight. But when you combine that, you combine the rape case, you combine what has been a public image where he has looked unhinged. He is admitted to using cocaine. He admitted to that during the rape civil case, that he had used cocaine on the night that was in question. So there's been drug issues. He is somebody that has been dodging the USADA drug policy, drug testing for several years while he was inactive in what looked like an effort to probably bulk up using HGH or steroids, something like that. At least that's how it looked to me. I don't know for sure, but that's what it appeared. Because anytime he talked about coming back to fight, he seemed to be want to avoid the drug testing. He finally, of course, had to subject to drug testing for coming up to this fight. But I just say all that to say, this to me should spell the end for Conor McGregor, and it shouldn't. It's deserved. This is a guy who's lost, I believe, four of his last 5 fights. He has not been competitive in several of them. One, he threw a kick and broke his leg. This one, again, he throws a kick and tears up his knee. He's also been knocked out. He's been choked out. Like, I don't know at this point what the appeal is for watching a Conor McGregor fight anymore, other than wanting to see a train wreck. Because the reality is, the Conor McGregor that was when he was in his prime, and seeing so many of these clips as people were kind of reminiscing about what Conor was, the Conor McGregor in his prime was a martial arts master. He was awesome. He was obviously double champion. He was lethal with the striking. He was really fun to watch. He was really engaging. Of course, he had the charisma that to match, and he was a huge star that not only I thought he transcended UFC. Like it was beyond just the UFC bubble that kind of knew who he was and understand who he was. He became bigger than that, and I think with that, maybe you lose a little bit of yourself, because now it became, well, now I want to be a boxer. Now, okay, I'm what can I sell people? Again, what kind of vices am I going to get into? In this case, it seems like he also may have been doing criminal activities when you talk about the rape case, and it maybe is a cautionary tale of what can happen to somebody when fame hits them in a way and they don't know how to handle it. Because, I mean, this was, again, sad only in the sense that it's sad to see anybody have this happen to them. Not because he doesn't deserve what happened to him. Because, again, if he did the things that he did, then I got no love for him. But this was somebody that was one of the greatest athletes we had in the world. And now you're watching him rocking a bizarre mohawk, blowing out his knee, trying to do something he can't do at 39 years old. Like, he shouldn't have been even trying to do that kind of kick. Like, to me, that kick spoke to a level of arrogance for this guy. Like, you're 39 years old, like, you're trying to do this spectacular when you know you're not the same Conor McGregor you once were, because you can't be. It's impossible. Not without, again, the help of performance enhancers. You're not going to be that guy. And when you tried to do this kind of stuff before, you broke your leg. Like, this is not it's not this guy's first rodeo, and basically injuring a lower body extremity in a UFC fight recently, or it was 5 years ago was the last fight. That was the last fight when he broke his leg in the octagon. So it was silly that he tried to do it. One of the things I do want to point out, though, and this is going to be a point that's continuing to be contended, and I'll be curious to see kind of how this all plays out, is the idea of whether or not he came into the fight injured. There was video. There's been multiple videos going around. There was video of him in his dressing room where he's warming up. He looks fine to me from what I can see. No, but that was one piece of evidence that people was okay, maybe he wasn't injured. But then there was a very awkward during his inspection prior to walking into the octagon. There was a very awkward moment where he's taking off his slippers, and he kind of ends up hopping on his one left leg as he's taking off his slippers before getting into the octagon barefoot. And it could be nothing. It could be nothing. Like, I'm sure I probably look weird at times taking off my slides. But when you have that little thing happen, and then 5 seconds into a fight you blow out your knee, it does lead people to have questions about what exactly was his health leading into this fight, if that's what he looked like the 2 minutes prior. That was the last thing we saw of him doing anything semi-athletic, and he looked like he needed crutches. Who's to say? What I will say, and look, I don't know if we'll ever get a real investigation into this, Dana White runs the UFC with an iron fist. So I would hold my breath about finding out any information about a previous Conor injury unless somehow a third party gets a scoop on this that we don't expect. But what I will say is, if Conor McGregor was injured, prior to going into this fight. And that was not disclosed to the fans that showed up and the bettors that bet on Conor McGregor. All those people should get their money back. All of them. I think for the people that went to the UFC event, or those folks, maybe you say, okay, here's like a partial refund because you did get to see 5 other fights or however many other fights were on the card. So it's not like you saw nothing. We know a lot of people were there for Conor McGregor, but it's not like they didn't get a UFC event at all. So for them, a partial. But I think for the people that bet on Conor McGregor, if he was injured and he walked into that octagon and the bettor had no idea he was injured, he didn't lead on or talk to anybody at all about a severe injury he was going to try to fight with, that would be something that I would say, you got whoever, FanDuel, DraftKings, all you guys got to give these people their money back. They got screwed. This was a sham. This wasn't a real event. And that's a scary thing, and that's why I think we're never going to hear the truth about this, if there is a malfeasance happening, because that would cause a massive scandal of epic proportions. There were millions of dollars, I assume, bet on that fight. And what I saw from ESPN bet was, I think 90% of the people bet on Conor McGregor. And then he walks in and he has a knee injury, allegedly or potentially. If that was true, then yeah, that fight has to just be voided. You can't lose money off that. That's a joke. So I hope it's not true for that stake, because that would be terrible. And that would just add on to the clown show that has been the Conor McGregor experience for the last 7-8 years. Basically, essentially when he started trying to box, basically. And I don't know what he does from here. Like, I guess in theory, I know he said he has one more fight left on his contract. He wants to fulfill that. I guess there's no harm in putting him in a card again and having him fight. I know one thing. I think you'd be stupid to make him a main event again. Like, he's a big name, but again, he's almost like a sideshow at this point, and he's physically unreliable. You don't know if he's going to be able to actually compete in a UFC fight. His last 2 fights ended with him, one in a wheelchair and the other one limping around, going to the hospital. Like, this is not somebody that you can really market a huge event around. To me, I think that would be silly. And the person that's behind the fighter that we've seen is also someone that I think is very unreliable too. So we'll see what ends up happening with Conor McGregor. But this, to me, is probably the end of him in a major way. I saw Bomani Jones said that I think his next stage has to be boxing Jake Paul, which I'm like, honestly, that's probably, yeah, like that feels more up his speed at this point. Like some kind of sideshow thing and a fake event that he can, create headlines and by doing the Conor McGregor bit of being outlandish. And I'm sure people would be invested in that. But him in an actual UFC event that's legitimate and serious, I don't know. But we move on. That wasn't only fight night, by the way, in Vegas. We had fight night, I guess, apparently at a Las Vegas gym. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero apparently got into an altercation according to ESPN's Shams Charania. That altercation involved Bam Adebayo striking Tyler Hero in the face during it. This all stemmed apparently from Bam Adebayo being upset about maybe some slick posts from Tyler Hero on social media after his departure from the Miami Heat. Of course, Hero was traded along with several other guys for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and now he's in Milwaukee. This sounds like this was an on-site situation where Bam saw Tyler, Bam said something, or Tyler said something, and then there was one hit, and then that was it. Now, Tyler Hero says he wants to move on. He's not speaking more about it, but we did get also some other reporting. I don't remember who it was, but somebody else reported that Tyler had to be restrained from going after Bam Adebayo after the initial contact was made by Bam. So, all I want to say on this is, to be honest, I'm actually surprised this doesn't happen more. Maybe it does and we don't hear about it, but we see so many of these, like, as Jalen Rose says, hold me back kind of moments in the NBA game where guys are threatening, I'll see you out in the back, or I will see you, whatever, or they people got to be separated, and then nothing comes of it because nobody wants to get suspended, nobody wants to get fined or anything like that. But these guys still have pride, and I'm sure these guys still have ops, they still have beefs that last beyond whatever small moment they had on the court. I'm actually surprised you don't see, especially because of the fact that these guys run in the same circles. They're all rich young millionaires. A lot of them date the same women. A lot of them go to the same vacation spots, like the same restaurants, same clubs. Like, they're gonna be in each other's orbit. I'm actually surprised there isn't more issues with guys, whether they be current teammates, former teammates, or opponents. So the fact that this got escalated this quickly is pretty surprising, just from that standpoint, that we don't hear about this more often. Now, maybe it happens more often. We don't know about it. Like, I always remember there was the reported or rumored incident about Tristan Thompson punching Draymond Green after an NBA Finals at some club somewhere, and that everybody saw it. I've never seen those guys cross orbits again, so I don't know if there's any reason to believe that was true. But I've heard about that. But otherwise, you don't really hear again about these off-season fights happening. What this tells me, though, is that there clearly was real, obviously, bad blood with how this thing ended with Tyler Hero being shipped out to Miami, shipped out to Milwaukee. And look, you talk on social media, you think the guys aren't about it, and then eventually you're gonna have to see them at some point. Maybe something happens. I don't, for my opinion, I hope the league doesn't do anything about this. To me, this feels like personal issue with these two guys. They had the squabble, it was broken up, and then hopefully we move on from there. I don't think there needs to be any more punishment or fines or anything like that. This was not at an NBA game. This is not. I know the league is in Vegas right now for the summer league, but this was not an NBA event as far as I'm concerned. So I think this should be a bygones be bygones situation. But I know one thing: we all thought that Giannis's return to Milwaukee was going to be important and interesting, and a date to circle in the NBA calendar this year. Now we got to circle, like, not just the Giannis aspect of it. Now it's the Tyler Hero aspect of it, which actually I think is way more interesting now, because I think the Bucks fans, they'll probably give him a standing ovation. Knowing Giannis, he'll probably cry, and that'll kind of be the end of it. I don't think he's going to get booed or anything like that. With Tyler Hero, though, there's real animosity now between him and Bam. Maybe there's animosity now from the Heat faithful, now that, Bam is their captain. Like, he is the leader of the team, even though obviously, Giannis is the superstar player that's come over. I can't imagine that this is going to make him more popular in Miami. I imagine this could absolutely make him kind of a villain there. So now I'm curious about when Tyler visits Miami, or whenever the Heat and Bucks play, if there's any kind of brewing stuff that goes on. But a wild thing to hear. I saw that post from Shams Charania. I thought it was fake. I thought it was like one of those NBA Centel or Ball Sack Sports reports when I saw that Tyler Hero and Bam got into it. Obviously, hopefully those guys can move on. And that seems like that's what Tyler wants to do from the public comments he put out there. Hopefully nothing else comes of this. But these guys appear to be pretty close, right? These are two Kentucky guys. They've done a lot of social media videos for the Heat together because they're younger stars on the team. So when I saw this, I was surprised. But when we see this all the time, we see these athletes when they get traded or they leave a team, they'll repost something shady or they'll like something shady. And this is apparently, according to reports, Tyler Hero had done this a couple of times and it PO'd Bam, and that's why they had this altercation. But we never see anything come of it. Like, Dylan Harper, didn't he repost like a post on TikTok about like De'Aaron Fox being basically a team cancer during the NBA Finals? And I hope those guys don't come to fisticuffs. I don't want anything to come of it. But it just happens. We kind of just move on. We kind of just expect these guys to do this stuff and then say, "Oh, I got hacked," or someone got into my account. We never see anything that's settled with fisticuffs, but it sounds like this is kind of what happened with the Bam and Tyler situation. Wild situation to hear about in Vegas this week. I want to shift gears here, and before we get to some of the Marvel and DC stuff, because there's some big news for Marvel and DC stuff. By the way, make sure you guys subscribe to the New Generation Podcast Network, where this is, of course, where you can get all episodes of 40 Days and Counting, the podcast version. So if you, for whatever reason, you are on the go, you're driving, you're on the train, whatever the case may be, and you can't watch these episodes, you can't watch on YouTube, you can't watch on Instagram, you can't watch on Buzzer, you can always listen to the podcast. It's posted wherever you get your podcast. Again, just search NU Generation Podcast Network. Also, I want you guys also, as we get into this Marvel and DC stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because that's where we do Hero Talk as well. So our Marvel, DC, superhero podcast hosted by myself, my brothers Shamari and Kendall Stewart. We do, I think, a phenomenal show. We're going to have a lot to talk about this week because a lot happened just in the last few days. And we're going to get into that as well on this show. But make sure you guys subscribe to New Generation Podcast Network to get those episodes of Hero Talk, because, again, a lot happened this week. But before we get into all that, I did want to mention real quick, I got to make it up to myself somehow. Somehow, some way, I have to find a way to make it up to myself because I failed myself. The Jay-Z concerts went down this weekend at Yankee Stadium. These were anniversary shows that happened. Friday night was the 30th anniversary of Reasonable Doubt. Saturday night was the 25th anniversary of Blueprint. And then there was an extra Sunday night show that was marketed as an extra inning show where he just, I guess, did a bunch of other songs from other albums. But this is Jay-Z's first really big concert shows he's done in, I don't know, it has to be 7 or 8 years, I think. Whenever 44 came out, that was a while ago. So this was huge. This was a huge event. Obviously, Reasonable Doubt is arguably the greatest hip-hop album of all time. It's arguably his greatest work. Blueprint also is arguably his greatest work. It's my favorite Jay-Z album. I always say it's my favorite album. I think it's his best. Though I go back and forth with that and Reasonable Doubt, because Reasonable Doubt is also phenomenal. And I couldn't find a way to make it to this show, man. And I almost ended up going. There's a long story about how I almost ended up going on Friday night, but I didn't. But I really, really got to make it up to myself, because I'm like, man, I was like, well, maybe it won't be so bad. Or maybe, these shows won't be as good as people said it was going to be. These shows look epic. I mean, the guests, you had Beyonce opening the Reasonable Doubt show, which had to be shocking to everybody, because, Beyonce was, I'm not trying to be creepy here at all, but I mean, she was probably like 10 years old when Reasonable Doubt came out. Like she I say that only to say that she was not at all part of Jay-Z's orbit or even the music orbit at 1996 or 95 when that came out. So when she came out to do Can't Not the Hustle, that had to be shocking and a thrill for a lot of people. But I mean, the amount of guests we saw, Stunning, Fat Joe, Jadakiss, Pharrell, Rihanna. I mean, star-studded. Eminem came out to do Renegade. I mean, this was an amazing 3 nights of shows, it seems like, and I missed it. Jay-Z's one of those public figures to me that I kind of have this complicated relationship with as a fan, because as a fan of the music, there's no denying how much I love Jay-Z's music. He's a big reason why I'm a hip-hop fan. And there's no denying to me that he's one of the greatest rappers of all time. If you want to say he's the greatest, I mean, this 3 runs of shows, the way the videos we're watching and some of the excitement that he built up for these events suggest that maybe he is. I'm not going to argue with you. You think he's the greatest. But to me, he's a legend when it comes to rap, and I love rap. I think some of the stuff with the NFL and how I thought he, no pun intended, kneecapped Colin Kaepernick's movement and his efforts to get back into the NFL when he decided to say we were past kneeling and decided to basically sign with the NFL to run their Super Bowl halftime shows. There's been moves he's made, there's comments he's made that just for me, in terms of where my social conscience is, I don't agree with. I think there has been a part of me as I get older that's trying to mature in understanding that, okay, maybe if I don't agree with somebody's social conscience, if it's not something heinous, I shouldn't have that separate my love of the art. Because Jay-Z hasn't engaged in anything heinous for me. I just don't disagree with his view on billionaires and, again, what he did to Kaepernick. Like, I disagree on some of these things, but like these are more public. These are personal views I have, but they're personal disagreements. They're not. It's not somebody he got. He killed somebody or he hurt somebody. There's nothing like that with him, right? So I think there's a fine line, or he's spewing some kind of level of hatred that Kanye West was spewing, right? Like that's somebody that the relationship is not that complicated. It's sad. Like for me as a fan of Kanye, it's sad because, again, Kanye is also one of my all-time favorite rappers, but I don't listen to his music anymore because to me, like, he is engage in levels of heinous commentary and rhetoric and just antics that I can't co-sign on any level. So I feel weird listening to his music and giving him any more streams. So I just don't listen to Kanye anymore. Jay-Z's not been that. Though, it's funny, I think just subconsciously, though, because I've had these disagreements and because he's said things and done things that I've vehemently disagreed with, it's kind of led me to listen to his music a lot less. And in this weekend, as I was preparing to try to maybe go to these shows, and I was listening to more Jay-Z all week last week, I'm thinking like, man, this is arguably my favorite rapper of all time because he's maybe the best, and this music was awesome, and I really wanted to go. Did not go on Friday. Had a WFAN show, and then I wanted to go on Sunday, but then once the Friday show happened, I think people realized how lit it was going to be. Those prices spiked tremendously on the third party market, and I was like, I'm not spending $500 to sit in, basically up there with Biggie to watch a Jay-Z show. As much as I want to be there, I don't have the money to do that. So I didn't go, and that was unfortunate. But what's crazy about this show was how it ended with the Sunday show, which, again, the show I almost tried to get to after I didn't go to the Friday one. This was a chaotic night, and it didn't seem to be any fault of Jay-Z's, but the fault of potentially like Yankee Stadium security, where the show had to be delayed for 4 hours because of a security breach, where now we've seen the videos on social media. Fans were able to bum rush certain entrances or side exits to get into the show for free. And there were all these people there who did not have tickets that found a way to get in there. And because there was a security breach, people did not go through any kind of security. They had to delay the show. I don't know what they did during that delay, but all I saw were videos of what looked like thousands of people outside of Yankee Stadium that could not get in. They shut down the stadium. There were no gates that were open. They weren't taking any more tickets. And this, again, lasted 4 hours where people are waiting around not knowing. I guess they ended up knowing the concert hadn't started yet, but they're outside not knowing if the concert is actually happening or whatever. They're just standing outside. They can't get in. I saw videos of people being wheeled out because of the heat and being around all these people and probably the panic attacks that were happening. This was crazy stuff to the point where I didn't think they were going to have a show. That Sunday night show that JC put on, I think didn't start until well after midnight, and which I know is a massive fine. There's a fine for events going late into the night in New York City and for the Yankees individually. Jay-Z must have paid the fine, or maybe they worked it out where it was Yankee Stadium fault for the security breach. I don't know what happened. But this was a show that ended by accounts that I saw on social media at 3 a.m. Like, fireworks are going off in the Bronx, in the South Bronx at 3 a.m. because the Jay-Z show finally ended. Again, wild stuff, man. But despite what had to be a pretty harrowing experience, you were outside the stadium, not able to get in for 4 hours, just standing around. It had to be crazy. I'm sure a lot of people just walked away and went home. The people who got to see the show looked like they got to see arguably the best show. I think he performed like 40 plus songs in that last night. Seems like it was a lot of fun. I'm kicking myself for not finding a way to get there. My wife, Andrea, was like, maybe you can find a way to go to the LA show, because he is doing one in October in LA, SoFi Stadium. And I'm like, maybe we'll see. Again, I think it's going to be $1 zillion like these were. Like, if they are, then not necessarily. I almost got to the Reason Without show because those tickets plummeted to like basically about $150 to get in. And I almost went. But, duty calls when you're doing a fan show, and you can't screw up your duties on being on WFAN, so that's why I didn't go. But, man, what a fun night it ended up being on Sunday night. And what a fun weekend it was for just hip-hop, fun weekend for New York. Like, just seeing so many New York hip-hop fans. I actually, when I was coming into the station, WFAN, on Friday night, going to Saturday morning, I actually got to see a lot of the Jay-Z fans coming from Yankee Stadium that were at Penn Station. They're all wearing Yankee shirts and stuff, and all wearing, Jay-Z 30 anniversary stuff. And it had to be an unbelievable show. And I can see it just from the videos I'm seeing. I'm hoping that they put something on streaming. Put it on Amazon. Put it on, I don't know, Tubi or Netflix, something. So I hope Jay-Z's going to end up putting out those shows on some kind of streaming service, because I will party like I'm there live in my house whenever they do. But it seems like a fun event. Definitely had a lot of FOMO because a lot of my friends were able to go out there, and that was really cool. So I told you guys we were going to talk some Marvel stuff, man, before we get out of here. And there's been a lot of stuff that's been going down. So let's begin with the Marvel again side of it, where very juicy rumor happening with the world of the X-Men and where that's going in the live action. So there's new rumor that Adam Driver, formerly, of course, of the Star Wars trilogy, the newest trilogy, the latest trilogy, that he is being eyed to play Magneto in future X-Men projects for Marvel Studios. We have no official castings right now of anybody that's related to anything of our X-Men. We have Sadie Sink, who in a matter of 2 weeks is playing some redheaded person that people have suspected and rumored and even reported is Jean Grey, but we've had no official confirmation of that as of right now. But that is all we have. We don't have anything else. All we have is rumor or speculation, but it's been mostly wild speculation and rumors. Here is the latest rumor of Adam Driver potentially playing Magneto. I'll be honest, I think he could be a great Magneto. I am personally a little surprised they wouldn't get somebody of Jewish faith to play Magneto. Can somebody who's not Jewish play somebody Jewish? I guess it's not for me to say. I'm not a Jewish person. I don't think it would be the hugest deal, but I just think given where the climate is and what we've seen with anti-Semitism, I thought maybe actually would have been an interesting commentary to kind of have, Magneto and his Holocaust background and maybe how that background and what he went through and what the mutants go through and maybe what we're seeing in our world currently in America and just worldwide, how that maybe juxtaposes against each other and the dynamic that are played onto that. So I thought maybe there was an opportunity there to, hire a Jewish actor to play him, but okay, they didn't do that. What I will say on Driver in terms of just his acting ability, I think there's no reason why he can't play Magneto. I don't know if this would be my first choice for him to play an X-Men villain. A lot of people, when he was named or rumored to be joining the X-Men movies for Marvel, looked at Sinister. And I think Mr. Sinister would have absolutely been a perfect role for him. His voice, even his look, he kind of has and Adam Driver has a very striking look that is very different. I think putting him in white paint or white prosthetics and making him look like Mr. Sinister, he would look like Sinister. He would look scary. I think he could play the creepy DNA genetic mutant guy down. I think he'd be awesome in that role. Can he play the righteous Magneto role of it too? Sure, for sure. But there's a part of me thinking about Marvel and thinking about what has worked for them in the past. I wonder if that's a role that maybe should have gone to someone that was more up and coming. Like, we've seen what they did, in previous years when casting, and this is a long time ago, right? But still, you get Chris Hemsworth being Thor, and Robert Downey, who was kind of was kind of coming back from being on the downs and outs of Hollywood to be Iron Man, and Chris Evans had been in a lot of movies, but he still, I think, hadn't quite broke through yet before he got to do Captain America. And then, of course, we've seen the bigger examples of the Tom Hollands and the Iman Vellani's and these young actors who basically were made stars with joining Marvel, and they've created stars, and they've found awesome talent. They found all these people Marvel, for all the things they've screwed up of late that people have complained about, they still haven't screwed up casting. Even Jonathan Majors was amazing as Kang, just the movie sucked, right? And they didn't know he was a bad person. At least I don't think they knew. But casting has not really been their issue. The people they've put into these roles have typically been really great, even if they haven't had a ton of work. I think the Fantastic Four crew, they outside of obviously Pedro Pascal was a big star. They all hit the mark and they were great. So there's aspects of this where Marvel has done it without having to try to get the borderline A-list person to join on. So I was a little surprised when I saw that Magneto may be the role for Adam Driver. Now it's early. We're gonna hear a story from DC on the other side that makes me pause and wondering if this is true, that he's indeed playing Magneto, because sometimes the first villain or first role you hear about an actor being linked to ends up being very different than the actual role they're playing. So I'm holding out to see if maybe he is playing somebody different. But the initial word was he's playing a villain, and then more word came out that it's at Magneto. So we'll have to see what happens. Driver is a great actor. Driver could absolutely be Magneto. I'm just surprised that they didn't go for maybe again someone who was a little more up and coming, and they didn't also maybe look at him as someone sinister. Because what they have done is when it's been roles for lesser known characters, sometimes they've been more known to go with the bigger names for those people. So that's where again Chris Pratt plays Star-Lord. Zoe Saldana plays Gamora. Like that's where they like, okay, for these smaller roles, maybe you don't know, maybe they're not as household names as some of the big heroes. We will go with some bigger names to try to make up the difference. With Magneto, he is one of the most recognizable villains in all of superhero medium, right? I mean, there's Joker, there's Lex Luthor. I think you could argue Magneto's third. I'm not even joking. I'm curious, Chad, what you think in terms of most recognizable villains in all superhero mediums. I think he's third. I mean, maybe Catwoman gets thrown in there. Catwoman's kind of an anti-hero. There's a lot of, Catwoman's kind of a weird case. But you could make a case that he's third. So I'm actually again a little surprised they didn't go with a someone who maybe wasn't as established a star. I heard Patrick Wilson is allegedly also being eyed to maybe play Professor X. The one thing I will say about whether it's Driver playing Magneto or Wilson playing Professor X is I do like the age of the people that they're getting, because that's been, I think, also been a big question mark. Especially when we've heard some of the people that's been talked about playing different roles. Adam Driver's 42. This stuff is important. I'm not trying to be ageist at all, but the reality is the hope for Marvel would be that you're doing X-Men movies for the next 20 years. He has to be Magneto for 20 years, you would think. And him being 42 opens himself up to being able to do that, right? In 20 years, you could probably do at least 5 movies. Patrick Wilson, I believe is, I want to say 39, I want to say. Let me just, that's what I said. That's what I saw before. Let me double check. Oh, no, he's 53. Patrick Wilson a little older, but I think 53 is probably right. That's probably like right where I would push it in terms of like how far I would push Professor X. I didn't want to see another 60, 70-year-old guy playing Professor X. Again, that's assuming he is the guy. But I did like the age of Adam Driver. So that gives you an opportunity to have some leeway and some rope to not have to feel like you got to like hammer home a lot of movies in a short amount of time. It's one of the issues that I think a lot of people have with Pedro Pascal being Mr. Fantastic is as great an actor as he is, and he was good in the role, he's an older actor. So for somebody who's already 51, and this is the introduction of the Fantastic Four, where he's not Professor X, where he's in a wheelchair. That's the thing about Patrick Wilson is it's not a very active role, right? He doesn't have to do a lot of fighting or do anything like that. He can look older or look not as athletic and it'd be fine. With Mr. Fantastic, he's obviously a scientist, but he also is somebody who is active in action scenes. And how active can you be for the next, again, 20 years when you're already 51? That's I think, a fair question when it came to the Pedro Pascal casting, as good as he is. With Adam Driver, he's 9 years younger. You don't have similar concerns. And Magneto typically also isn't quite as physical an actor as, a physical role rather, as maybe a Mr. Fantastic is. But Driver's he's a great actor. I mean, he's a great guy to have on your team. I'm curious to see if he actually is playing Magneto. If he is, I'll say, okay, I'm willing to see it because he's great. There's a part of me that wonders if there were other better characters he could have played. I mean, he could have played like a William Stryker. Like I would have loved to have seen him be the kind of guy who was, maybe behind the Weapon X project. And there's, if I think the only reason why I think some people are trepidatious about it because it does feel like a little bit maybe that Marvel. Oh, what's a big name that we can grab for this role that kind of makes sense? Okay, cool, let's throw him in there. And it's like, yeah, he can do that role, but like he may be positioned in a better spot. It's almost like when you sign a free agent. And you're like, I just need anybody to play first base. Go play first base. It's like, all right, he can play first base. But maybe his glove is more needed at third. Maybe his glove's more needed in the outfield. Like, maybe there's a better spot for him that isn't just, like, the obvious thing. That would probably be my one question about the casting. But if that is the casting. But nonetheless, excited that I think we're getting close, man. I think you're gonna hear, especially as we get closer to Spider-Man, I think you're gonna hear more and more stuff about what's going on with the X-Men castings, and I think at a certain point they won't be able to probably hide stuff because I think Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey, and once that happens, like there's only so much you can hide from the story that's gonna be revealed. That I think, and then you got Comic-Con I think coming up, maybe next week or this week. When is San Diego Comic-Con? Actually, this is a good thing to look up right now. Let me see. San Diego Comic-Con 2026 is next weekend, right? And Hall H, let me see, is Marvel doing a Hall H thing? I think they better. By the way, I was very disappointed to hear that DC was not doing anything for Hall H. I thought that was really silly. Marvel is doing something for Hall H, by the way. So if you're going to be checking out San Diego Comic-Con, you're in luck. If Marvel's doing a Hall H panel, that means there's going to be something massive. So I'm very, very invested and excited to see what that's going to be. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed that that you're not going to have a DC presence at Hall H. I know James Gunn had mentioned that it was basically a money thing, and it costs millions of dollars to do these presentations, which is, it sounded crazy, but when I thought about it, I was like, well, these actor appearances I'm sure aren't free, right? Like Robert Downey to show up at Comic-Con had to have cost them minimum tens of thousands of dollars. I almost want to say hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he's not the only actor that they were like bringing on, right? So you combine him, you combine whatever artwork that needs to be created and graphics and hours that need to be put into the presentations. I was like, well, you know what? Maybe it actually ends up turning out to be $1 million. But with what happened with Supergirl, I kind of wondered if DC would have been smart for them to get out there and just like have people just move on from the Supergirl experience. Tell everybody everything you got coming down the pipe, all the exciting things people should be looking forward to, because there was just so much negativity around what happened with Supergirl. So that was interesting to me that they decided not to have a presence at San Diego Comic-Con. Speaking of the future of DC, there was some interesting news that came down today, and I was surprised by this. So, Xolo Maridueña, who, if you remember, played Jaime Reyes in Blue Beetle, technically the last, but also the last movie of the old DCEU, but also the first of the new DCU technically, because that movie I think is canon. I think we'll get more clarity when we actually see Man of Tomorrow, and that's important to note because the reason why I'm talking about him is because he has been cast to reprise his role as Blue Beetle in Man of Tomorrow. This is a movie that's coming out next year. This is a James Gunn directed and written story. This is essentially a Superman sequel, but James Gunn has been kind of dancing around calling it that. I mean, it's definitely the continuation of the Superman story. You're gonna have David Corenswet playing Superman. You're gonna have Lex Luthor's return and Nicholas Hoult. So you're gonna have a lot of the same actors, obviously, and a lot of people that were in the first Superman movie that did extremely well back. But we've heard rumors that this is gonna be an expanded movie that should see other characters getting some shine. And here you got Blue Beetle, who's gonna make an appearance in this movie. How much of an appearance, I don't know. We saw last year when they had the quote unquote Justice Gang that was a part of the movie, the Superman movie. That you had Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, you had Hawkgirl, and you had Mr. Terrific, who certainly I think was probably the star of the team that showed up in that movie. I love this, and I really love, again, similarly, as much as I've criticized Supergirl and stuff, I love what James Gunn does with Superman outside of one thing with the Krypton stuff, which I'm not going to get into right now. But I love that he is using the world of DC to help boost these Superman movies. There's a way to expand universes that is very tasteful, and there's ways to do it that feel like either fan service or feel like you're not, or feel negligent of actually telling a Superman story. And I thought Gunn, who a lot of people were questioning whether or not he'd be able to do it, he did a great job of it last time. Like, he found a way in a story that absolutely felt like Superman. He found a way to include Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Maxwell Lord, and Metamorpho, all in a Superman movie. And it didn't feel like what is this movie? It's a jumbled up thing. Why isn't this just a just? It didn't feel like that. It felt like a Superman movie. It felt like those characters that showed up all made sense to show up when they did, and their roles were just enough to feel like you got whatever you wanted out of them without feeling like they were around for too long. So I hear you're bringing in Blue Beetle, who I know a lot of folks maybe didn't watch Blue Beetle. That was a really good movie. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it was like an all-time great or anything like that. I would love to watch it again. Maybe I'll actually watch it later tonight. Like, it's an underrated superhero movie. It's probably one of the most underrated superhero movies, to be honest. Like, it is really good. Cola is phenomenal as Blue Beetle. The family that they put together around him and the castings they made with his family members, his uncle, who was played by George Lopez, and his mom, and the whole team. It was just a really fun movie. It felt like DC's version of Ant-Man. And I say that in the best ways, because Ant-Man 1 was really good, and Ant-Man and Wasp was, pretty decent, right? The last one was terrible. But it felt like this was DC's answer to it in a way that worked really well. So when, we knew that this was going to be a changeover when James Gunn was hired, when he said that Blue Beetle was going to remain as part of this, universe, I was very excited about it. I think a lot of fans who watched Blue Beetle were. So I'm happy that he's being inserted this early. I thought maybe this somebody's going to be put completely on the back burner. This was kind of, I wasn't sure, to be honest, if this wasn't like a little bit of a fan service. Like, okay, I know people like Blue Beetle. It doesn't make sense for me to upset the apple cart by saying he's gone when I don't have plans for him. Let me just say, hey, listen, he's good. He'll be around. We'll figure out a place to put him in. The fact that he's going to be essentially in the third movie of this new DCU, I think speaks to that, A, how much James was impressed by Cola and that performance in that movie. And B, I think it also speaks to just, again, I think the creativeness with which James Gunn's able to expand these Superman stories in a way that's going to be fun. I mean, you're going to have a Brainiac-led story with Superman, now with Lex Luthor, and now Blue Beetle's going to be a part of this, which I think makes a ton of sense for Blue Beetle, with the alien Scarab being, obviously a big part of his character and his superhero-dom, and how that may play into whatever's going to be happening with the threat of Brainiac. So he would make sense, I think, to be a part of this story. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about this. And kudos to James Gunn. Again, this is something I think that would have been great to potentially reveal at a Comic-Con. But again, he said that the money didn't make sense for him to do that. They did just lose hundreds of $millions on Supergirl, to be fair. So I guess that would make sense to some degree. I mentioned earlier, this is one of the last things we do today. I mentioned earlier how, like, Adam Driver's being cast as Magneto, as that's the rumor right now, and I'm withholding some judgment, because who they say someone is playing when we first hear rumors sometimes ends up changing. I say that because of what happened with Scarlett Johansson and the Batman 2. So, for those who may not already know, Scarlett Johansson was cast to play a part in the Batman Part 2. What that part was seemed to be pretty straightforward, but seemed to be also confusing. So, if you remember, this came out a long time ago. There was rumors that they were doing, obviously, well, not rumors. We knew they were doing the Batman 2. And we started to get some early word on who would be a part of the story. Sebastian Stan was initially the person that was revealed to be playing Harvey Dent. And it was like, okay, that's very interesting. You also had the rumors that it was going to be Scarlett Johansson who was joining the cast. The details were murky, but it seemed like the initial details was she was going to be playing Gilda Dent. Gilda Dent is somebody who ends up becoming a villain in the Batman series. She ends up being Gilda Gold. But that was a little more weird. The Dent with Dent and Sebastian Stan, I thought that seemed like perfect casting. Oh yeah, I see it. That's really good casting. He should be great as that. To waste Scarlett Johansson on Gilda Dent felt a little weird, I'll be honest. Like, Gilda Dent isn't nobody, but it did I don't know, it felt like that was a weird, of all the characters we were talking about, is she Talia al Ghul? I really thought maybe she was playing Phantasm, Sophia Bordeaux. Like I thought that there were so many bigger characters, bigger roles she could have stepped in. I thought playing Harvey Dent's wife was a little strange. But I was like, okay, I don't know. I mean, she's a great actress, and maybe they're gonna put some more teeth into the Gilded Dent character, and this will be really good. So we then found out, like months ago, that actually it's not Sebastian Stan playing Harvey Dent. He's actually playing Victor Zsasz, which is also really cool, and I think maybe better casting. I'm like, oh, that's really awesome. I'm really excited about that. And that Brian Michael Tyree is going to be the one playing Harvey Dent. That one was a little weird, and I'm not even mad about the race bending per se. I'm more about to me that's going to be a very interesting leap for him to take. Like, to me, Henry is somebody who is so. He always plays characters, even if they're not like the most like upstanding or whatever. And most of the time, he does play people pretty upstanding. But even if they're not, they're always very likable. Like, I mean, Two-Face is not likable. Like the Harvey Dent aspect of it, like maybe he could do, like, the thing about Harvey Dent is charismatic, but Harvey Dent isn't necessarily likable, if that makes sense. Like, Harvey Dent is arrogant. Like, that's a big part of his character. Like, in theory, I can't see Henry playing that role where, like, he's somebody that's just, like, this arrogant, like, know-it-all kind of, like, attorney who then turns into Two-Face. That seems very dark for him. But he's been great in everything I've ever seen him in. So I'm going to give him every opportunity to prove me wrong and show that he can do it. But I'm being real about what I've seen from him in his work. So that all then I kind of forgot about the Scarlett Johansson aspect of it, because like, wait, so if Victor Zsasz is gonna be what's the name? Is gonna be Stan, and then you're gonna have Henry playing Dent. I didn't know what that meant for Scarlett Johansson. I kind of just forgot about that aspect. But then we got reports this week that Scarlett Johansson is actually not playing Gilda Gold / Gilda Dent. She's actually gonna be playing Poison Ivy. Now this is a bombshell. This is a massive shift, and a shift that once again makes a lot more sense. Like, Poison Ivy obviously is a huge villain, one of the biggest Batman villains. Poison Ivy is someone that has not been done in the Batman movies since Batman and Robin, which was 1998, I believe, played by Uma Thurman. It's a movie that has a soft place in my heart, not because it is good. It is arguably one of the worst superhero movies ever, but it is also one of the funniest movies ever. Like, it is legitimately funny. There's some people who have a theory that it's actually a parody, and if you watch it as a parody, you will actually love Batman and Robin. This was Arnold Schwarzenegger was playing Mr. Freeze, and you had Alicia Silverstone playing Batgirl. Like, this was the infamous Bat Nips movie. Like, there was a lot of crazy weird stuff going on in this movie. Uma Thurman played Poison Ivy, and she was good in it, to be honest. I mean, she played a very over the top character role. You know, you had the crazy Bane character in this movie where he was just a bumbling idiot, you know, who just yells, "Oh, Bane!" I mean, that movie is just. I need to watch that movie again too. That is also one of my favorites. I haven't watched it in a while, but yeah, favorites not because it's good, favorite because it's hilarious. But I say all that to say, I mean, Scarlett Johansson's Poison Ivy is a knock out of the park, home run kind of hire. That is the kind of casting that I'm like, yeah, I need to be seated in the theater for that. I think Scarlett Johansson could be phenomenal in this role. They said the role is essentially going to be her playing a realistic version of Poison Ivy, where she'll be using toxins and plants to be basically a serial killer. That's a very fascinating aspect of the Batman world that was created by because it's a world that is very real. So when you think about the world that's been created, they did the Riddler. That's an easier character to make darker and maybe more relatable in this day and age because he's not someone that's super powered. Poison Ivy is. So I am curious how Matt Reeves, who did a great job with the Batman, another movie I need to watch again. I need to go on like a movie marathon. I feel like I haven't watched a lot of movies in a while that I like. I'll be curious. Now this is different. This is on him taking somebody who is typically super powered, who now won't be. Will we enjoy this take on Poison Ivy? I'll be honest, of all the characters that typically have superpowers, in terms of the villains, this might be the one that I would be most okay with them not having powers. Like, I don't think Poison Ivy necessarily needs to have powers in order to be extremely dangerous and believable in this world. I think the story they're putting out there that, again, she's going to be this serial killer using toxins and poisons and plants to kill, like, dignitaries and important people around Gotham, I think is a great story. I kind of wonder if maybe this becomes something where she gets powers at the end, but I don't know. Again, Matt Reeves has worked in a very serious, very real world. I just like that this movie is like, it's such a left turn from everything from the last movie. The last movie was very, like, coded and maybe there will be some, like, federal, local corruption in Gotham, but a lot of it was like Gotham corruption meets, again, like, dark serial killer but really related a lot to, like, the mob. Like, there's a lot of mob stuff with this movie, The Batman one, and also Penguin. Like, you kind of live in the worlds of the Maronis and the Falcones and their relationship to it. That's why Penguin's in the first movie. And it feels like, I don't know for sure, but it feels like we're veering very far away from that. All of that stuff. We have Victor Zsasz. We got Harvey Dent, who's not, I mean, maybe he may be the part where maybe we're getting into some of that criminal stuff, but I don't know. And then you got Poison Ivy, who has nothing to do with gangsters or mobs or anything like that. So it feels like this is going to be a veer far left from where we were, but I'm excited for it. I'm for it. I want to see how this ends up playing out. I'm curious whatever other potential surprises we have. Nobody even knew, Brian Tyree was even in this movie. We thought Dent was playing somebody different. We thought Scarlett Johansson was playing somebody different. Maybe there's other castings. Maybe there's other people in this movie we don't know about. I know a lot of people have been fiending for an opportunity to see Mr. Freeze brought back to the live action. Maybe he's in this movie. Maybe there's somebody playing him we don't even know about, or somebody that's been cast we don't know about, because I gotta give credit to DC and to Matt Reeves. I mean, they have kept this stuff very close to the vest, and they've been playing games with the misdirects here and there. I saw this, I was like, oh, that's stunning that Johansson's playing Poison Ivy, but also I get it, and I'm really excited for it. Last thing, man, before I get out of here, I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and Counting. Once again, no streaming on X today. X is just screwing me. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to do other than not playing an intro, which I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll try that next time, though. I don't know. But I went on X. You guys saw the intro I played. I played just the music, and it still crapped out on me. So I don't know what's going on. But no X today. But make sure you follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. We are streaming live on YouTube, per usual. New Generation Media. Shout out to the folks that have checked me out on New Generation Media's YouTube page. We're also streaming live on Instagram as well. Shout out to the folks that have checked me out on Instagram. And we're live on X. Instagram, of course, Action EJ. And we're not live on X, but we are live on Buzzer. EJ205 Preps, where you'll find me on Buzzer. Last thing, and it's another final comic book story. This is probably one of the more comic book-y episodes of 40 Days of Counting we've had in a while, but I think it's warranted because of a lot of the news that happened. And we are entering kind of the dog days of sports summer at this point. We're weeks away from NFL training camps. We're further removed from the NBA offseason. NBA Summer League is starting to come to an end, so we're kind of in the no man's land of sports right now. But we talked a lot of Marvel. We talked a lot of DC. I mentioned in terms of animated stuff how great X-Men 97 has been. There's a new episode happening tomorrow night. That is one, or tomorrow rather. I guess technically 3 a.m. tonight. That show is phenomenal. I can't wait for this new episode that's coming up later today or later tomorrow. But there's another show you guys need to be watching. And I'm going to keep singing the praises of this show until more people identify with what Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, and DC is doing with My Adventures with Superman. My Adventures with Superman they're in season 3 right now. And they had an episode to me that stands up with X-Men 97 in terms of how great it was and the storytelling that they had. And there's a show we talked about on 40 Days and Counting before in the preview of it, because they revealed that they were doing the Reign of Superman storyline. They were adopting that for My Adventures with Superman, and I was very curious how that was going to work. We've seen Cyborg Superman, Hank Henshaw, who was in the last season of My Adventures with Superman. This episode, or the previous episode, also revealed the introduction of Superboy, who, interestingly enough, was not Connor Kent and not who we thought he was going to be, which was a great swerve. And sorry, this is spoilers for those who didn't watch. I'm not going to give away the whole story, but for those who didn't watch, we learned that it's not Connor Kent, which I think a lot of people expected. It was John Kent. It was Superman's son. Why is it Superman's son? I think you guys should check it out. But I'm just saying all that to say that like this episode this week was phenomenal. They essentially adopted their version of the death of Superman, and the fight scene between Superman, Supergirl, Superboy, and Hank Henshaw's Cyborg Superman was absolutely phenomenal. The artwork is incredible. Emotion is incredible. Where things land at the end of the episode also very interesting. There's time travel element involved that is going to make these last 4 or so episodes of the season really interesting as well. I just got to give a round of applause, man, to My Adventures of Superman. I hope you guys check it out at some point. This is one of the best animated superhero shows ever. I don't know if it's top 15, top 10. I don't know where it lands, but we're in season 3 now. Every season has been awesome. And I thought they hit a new stratosphere with this previous episode. I didn't know what gear they had. Like I've hyped up this show. I've mentioned how good it's been, but this felt like almost X-Men 97 level. Like again, the artwork, the drama, they really put teeth into Cyborg Superman in a way that I didn't expect. Cyborg Superman is one of those super villains that I'm just like usually like whatever about. Supergirl's tried to do him, and other media have tried to do him. And this is the best version of Hank Henshaw that we've seen, in my opinion. And again, they gave him real teeth with this episode and with this show so far. I love this episode. I love what's happened in My Adventure with Superman. I'm hoping that James Gunn continues this show. I know the showrunners have said basically it's kind of in James Gunn and Warner's court at this point. I don't know if there's going to be, I know there's a Paramount deal that's happening. I don't know if there's any implications with that. Hopefully that's not the case. If it is only in James Gunn's court, I think James Gunn would be silly to cancel this show. To me, James Gunn needs to be promoting this show as kind of like additional promotion for the Superman character that right now was experiencing a renaissance prior to that Supergirl movie. I think Supergirl movie maybe took a little bit of the shine off of the Superman, brand for a little bit, but between last year's movie, between this show that's been awesome, that people have, it's been well received, like Superman was hot again for the first time in 30 years maybe. Like this is your opportunity to continue that. So I hope that they continue this show because the episode they had this week was awesome. And it sounds like, the next few episodes may be more filler episodes, but it sounds like the finale episodes are also, from what I've read online, have been also phenomenal. So just had to give a round of applause one more time to what is some high-end superhero animated content that is being produced by DC with My Adventures with Superman. That's going to do it, man, for this edition of almost said Orange Blue Buzz, of 40 Days and Counting. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this episode. Of course, make sure you follow me on social media. You can find me on X, EJ_Stewart, on Instagram, Action EJ, on TikTok, Action EJ, and on Buzzer, EJ205 Prep. Also be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Also be sure to subscribe to the podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back Friday morning with a new edition of 40 Days and Counting. That one will be fun. Let's hope we'll be on X as well so we won't get thrown off. This was a blast. I'm EJ Stewart. Have a great rest of the week. I'll see you guys in a bit.